Sign with clappers. First row's turn to the right, second row's turn to the left.
Let's please sit this period facing the wall.
Silent the clappers. First and third rows turn to the right. Second rows turn to the left.
We will now recite the Song of Covenant, which is found on page 8 of the State Board Religion Book. We, the Dietitian of Buddhist honor, with respect for the worth and dignity of each person, with wonder at the wisdom and compassion we seek to cultivate by practice, and with deep gratitude for the teachers of this lineage and our connection to one another, covenant to support each other by upholding the precepts of doing no harm, practicing good, and actualizing good for others. Please be seated for this evening's talk. Please face towards our teacher, sit comfortably, and in a moment we'll recite the Opening Sutra, also found on page 8. Gata on opening the sutra.
So good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. Please sit comfortably and in a way that we can see each other. Do you hear reality there? You know, it's amazing how when the seasons change, the feeling in the Zendo pivots right with it. I think the mic is where it needs to be. Can you hear me okay? Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, everybody point at you again. Also the sound of reality. But it's interesting how when the seasons change, what wants to happen in the Zendo, it shifts right along with it, you know. When spring is happening and summer is at its heat, there's a very different kind of energy. And we're very fortunate, those of us that live here, that we get to experience the seasons in earnest, like we actually get seasons, you know. And so, you know, we started the Zendo this evening, same time, but it's dark out. And so having the lights all the way on was totally felt great like 4 weeks ago, and now not. Because the earth is in a different place in relationship to the sun and to the moon. And we need to be able to sense these kinds of things and harmonize with them. And so much of human society is about sort of blazing our will on top of everything, because that's what we want, or that's what we think we want. And so we become less and less connected to nature and less connected to ourselves and less connected to each other. So this business of knowing like where the lighting should be, and should we face in or out, and do we chant or do we sit, the sensitivity to this is the same as the sensitivity of cultivating community. Now, the Buddha gave some teachings that I've been finding very, I think, helpful, and based on a lot of the conversations I've been having with Sangha members over the past many weeks. And so I want to continue a little bit this conversation about good friendship, and how did the Buddha understand and what did he teach on this really important subject of human connection. Now tonight, I hope to bring two very different teachings that the Buddha gave and put them in sort of relief to each other and see what they might have to suggest for us. These are both drawn from the Anumanakaya Suttas, the Pali Canon. And the first one is good friendship in the household life. Good friendship in the household life. And the second, which we'll draw from this evening, good friendship in the monastic life. Okay, so the household life is referring to folks like us, all of us here, that live in the world and have relationships and jobs and responsibilities and stuff, right? And the monastic life, in the time when he was teaching it, referred to folks who didn't have those things. They lived in the community of the Sangha as ordained monastics. And we'll see what that might have to offer. So first, this teaching on good friendship in the household life. Listen. What is good friendship? Here, in whatever village or town a clansperson lives, they associate with householders or their children, whether young or of mature virtue, or old and of mature virtue, who are accomplished in faith, virtuous behavior, generosity, and wisdom. They converse with them and engage with them in discussions. Insofar as they are accomplished in faith, they emulate them with respect to their faith. Insofar as they are accomplished in virtuous behavior, they emulate them with respect to their virtuous behavior. Insofar as they are accomplished in generosity, they emulate them with respect to their generosity. And insofar as they are accomplished in wisdom, they emulate them with respect to their wisdom. This is called good friendship. So there's a couple of components that stand out to me in this. And the first is that in whatever village you live, in whatever place you find yourself, where you are is just right. The advice to the householder is your house is the dojo. He doesn't say, oh, first of all, make sure the householder lives really close to the cool urban center or far from the urban center or any guidance like this. Simply where you actually are, wherever you are. Associate with other folks and other families and their children And whether they are young of mature virtue or old and of mature virtue. But the thing that he's pointing out there is not just, might be a little abstract, but it's a commonality would be to hang with your peers, right? I'm Gen X, like solidly, so hang out with other Gen Xers, right? Millennials hang out with millennials, and boomers can do whatever they do. But instead, he says, it's not so much like your chronological age. That doesn't tell you who your bros are, so to speak. What it has to do with is virtue, which is kind of an interesting thing. Another Zen master once said, I will study with anyone, and no matter how young they are, if they have something to teach, I will bow down and learn. And I will teach anyone, no matter how old they are, if I have something to offer, I will generously offer it. This said Master Joshu. Again, it's not about appearance, it's about the spirit, it's about the quality of life. Now, this subject of virtue is, sadly, the word has been really abused, I think, in English. It's almost unusable, but not entirely, not yet. But it has to do with being noble and being honorable and being upright and being honest, all the good things. It doesn't mean I'm necessarily conforming to society's pressure. It's a very different thing. And it doesn't mean performative virtue, like virtue signaling is a word of modern day. It means actual, like people who are actually really honorable. That's the quality. And then he goes on to elucidate 4 particular areas: faith, virtuous behavior, generosity, and wisdom. And again, faith is another one of these words that's really gone through some rough times in English. I sometimes refer to it as the F word because in our modern day and age, for many people, it has come to mean blind belief in something that can't be proved for its own sake as a signal of worth, however defined. However, that's really a bad definition. Consider, if you're in a relationship and it matters to you, then there's a real trust in that relationship. If you're so foolish as to try to have children, and then maybe you're successful, it takes a ton of faith to really deal with all that is. Hell, just to live a life takes a lot of faith, if you understand the word, the way I feel it to be here. Total trust in reality. The wisdom part, by the way, is seeing through the bullshit. So both sides. Not just blind adherence. It's not so slight as that. Virtuous behavior means people who actually act in the world and do good, making good for others actually intervening in a way that helps to eliminate or reduce suffering and anguish. It's not theoretical, in other words. The Buddha doesn't say really, really cool virtuous philosophies, a sweet cognitive framework. This is not what's being held up. It's actually like your day. How do you navigate your day? Your day with all of the joys and sorrows and advantages and problems and good things and horrible things and kind of blah time in between. Like that day. That's actually it. That's exactly where awakening expresses. It's not just in the temple on a beautiful early fall evening with the sounds of the crickets and the stillness and the incense. That's great. I love it. But if your practice ends here and you're a jerk the rest of your day, you're missing it big time. So actually behaving, meeting your day in a way that is beautiful. Beautiful, beauty, art, poetry. Sensing and seeing the currents of your life and meeting them well. And using that to sense and feel the currents of the lives of those you're engaged with and meeting them well. Generosity. You know, it's said over and over that when the Buddha came to a new town and people he didn't really know asked for the teaching of the Dharma, one of his big go-to things was to talk about generosity and how important it is. And mind you, these are people that are living in subsistence level poverty, most of them. So what generosity is he talking about? Well, sure, every now and then there's a wealthy merchant or a king who can do all kinds of flashy things, but what about the rest of us? And what about them too, by the way? This generosity means the way that you meet your own life and the way that you meet the lives of those with you is met in a place of open-hearted generosity. That's like the go-to fundamental response, which is a completely opposite of a hoarding or a shielded way of being in the world. And it includes, by the way, it very much includes yourself, being generous with yourself, knowing how to actually take care of yourself for real, and being very generous with yourself in doing that. This is necessary to spiritual training. Zen can sometimes appear very austere and very kind of husky at times, you know. And interestingly enough, if you try to engage in Zen training with this kind of like macho, husky, I'm going to make this happen kind of attitude, it will break you. It will relieve you of this mistaken view because you simply can't survive that way. It'd be like if you're trying to sit there in meditation and you're like, you imagine what you need to do is flex, like you're at the top of your ultimate bench press personal rep record. And that's how you're sitting, because you have to be intense because it's Zen. You're just going to go, you're going to fall over. Luckily, it's not that far to fall. But somewhere along the line, you have to learn what is it to have your spine be straight and your muscles be relaxed? What is it to have your consciousness be open and clear and have your mind be not cluttered? Because don't confuse those two. Just because your mind is spinning and active does not mean that we are clear. It simply means we're agitated. Very different. Right? And then lastly, wisdom. And wisdom, when we're talking about Buddhist understanding, this means seeing into the true nature of reality. That's the only thing it means. Seeing into the true nature of yourself, the true nature of the universe, knowing what that reality is, and being able to live out of it. So mind you now, he's talking about householders, folks in the world. Who do you hang with? You know, there's nothing in here about the influencers of the moment, or those you wish to garner favor from. Those who are mature of virtue. and then holds up these four. And then, very interestingly, he says, they converse with them and engage in discussions with them. Like a vow of conversation. Like talk. Have conversations. Exchange. Isn't the Buddha just supposed to be silently meditating all the time? Well, interestingly, those who live in the world do well to recognize what virtue and non-virtue is and know the difference and understand what it is to have true faith in mind, true faith in the way, to be virtuous in the world, to be generous and to be wise, and to like hang out and have conversations and talk. In a very real way, you could say that this entire Sangha is the result of countless conversations. You could say that where you are in the world and how you see things has much to do with the conversations you've had and who they've been with. Conversation is a sacred practice. Conversation is Dharma practice. Like to actually be able to look at someone and have an exchange with them, even when you're like horrifically introverted or agitated or not sure what to say or so extroverted you can't shut up and you really need to, or, you know, whatever, wherever you are on the spectrum. Actually engaging in the conversation is an incredibly important value. It's kind of interesting if you think about all the conversations perhaps that you've had in the past 24 hours, I don't know. If you were to actually like kind of note them or write them down, like, were you practicing? Were you awake? Did you use that to really connect with yourself and your fellow Homo sapien, or whatever it is you were talking to, your pug? And then further and lastly, he says, insofar as they are accomplished in faith and mind, then emulate with respect to that. Insofar as they're accomplished in virtuous behavior, you emulate that. Insofar as they're accomplished in generosity, emulate that. Insofar as they're actually accomplished in wisdom, yeah, you can emulate that. So hang with the virtuous, hang with the folks, be in conversation, and pay attention to the good stuff and resonate with it. And built into that is the fact that, you know, not everyone's super accomplished in everything. Perhaps you've noticed when you look in the mirror. So, you know, certain people in the band have certain qualities that they bring to the gig, you know? Maybe somebody's really just solid, reliable. They're not particularly fiery or attention gathering, but they're just solid and reliable. That's a beautiful quality. Maybe somebody else is sparkly and puts the fairy dust in the air and keeps everything zippy, and you never quite know, and keeps everybody on their toes. Like this. In this way, with conversation and being engaged and taking care of each other and developing our own virtue, our practice is increased and our friendships are increased. And as many of you know, my day gig, I'm a professor at the university here, and this business about how to be friends, how to make friends and how to be friendly for real, Very difficult in the age of Instagram, plus the age of the pandemic. It's an important skill, but not just for teenage undergrads, for all of us. Now, what did the Buddha say to monks about this subject? This is the famous exchange with Ananda, who was the Buddha's attendant, his jisha. Venerable Ananda approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side and said, Bhante, which is it's a term of respect. This is half of the spiritual life, that is, good friendship, good companionship, and good comradeship. And the Buddha said, not so, Ananda, not so. This is the entire spiritual life, Ananda. That is, good friendship, good companionship, good comradeship. Now, when a monk has a good friend, a good companion, a good comrade, it is to be expected that they will develop and cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path. Now here I suggest we simply translate a little bit. It's not just monks. It means us as practitioners of the Buddha Dharma. So when you come to retreat, like you can feel retreat has started, but it technically starts tomorrow. But when you're in that kind of setting, or when you're in the Sangha setting, right? Someone who has a good and healthy relationship in a Dharma sense, one of the ways the Buddha is saying that you can tell is that they both start practicing the Dharma better together than they would alone. When a practitioner of the Buddha Dharma, or as it's originally written, a monk, has a good friend, a good companion, a good partner, it is to be expected that they will develop and cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path. Now, Ananda, how does a monk with a good friend develop and cultivate the Noble Eightfold Path? Here, the monk develops right view, which is based upon, now listen to the differences in this, based upon seclusion, dispassion, cessation, maturing in release, in letting go. Whoa, that's a pretty different list, right? Check it out again, right? He develops the Eightfold Path based on seclusion. That's like the opposite of conversation, right? Seclusion. Dispassion means not getting hooked by things. Cessation, ceasing to create self and other and drama, please. Maturing in letting go, non-attaching, practicing non-clinging. With these as the base, they develop right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, which is based on seclusion, dispassion, cessation, and maturing in letting go. In this way, a practitioner of the Dharma with good friends develop and cultivates the Noble Eightfold Path. Well, which one is it? Are we supposed to hang out and talk, or are we supposed to be dispassionate and not cling? Yeah. Exactly, both. It's not an either or. It's time, position, place, and degree. So for example, on a typical Sunday service, kids are running around and it's bright and sparkly and there's awesome pasta these days. And after service is done, people are hanging out and it's great. That's the time to enjoy each other's wholesomeness and nobility and regalness and also the despair and the traumas and the challenges and being authentic. That's noble too, right? And it's conversation. How are you? What's going on? Oh, I miss you. Haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you again. All this is not trite. This is not just filler. That's the Dharma. But when we're in here and the bell rings and we're facing the wall, like, not now, Cato. Now, just sit. Be one with Buddha. Be one with Dharma. Be one with Sangha. Let go of all of it. Let go of yourself. There's no one to be in conversation with anyway. Just let go. And then the bell rings and we have to stand up and walk around and not walk into each other. So, which way do you go? It's always this way. Now, some of us have a very natural affinity to conversation. Comes easy, comes quickly, happens maybe a little bit too much. Some of us have a natural affinity to the seclusion and to the non-attaching and like dispassion and stay away, thank you. And so one thing that I've always admired in my teacher is that when a student is a little bit leaning a little bit too far right and the canoe's going to tip, you know, you put a little weight over there and it makes the balance. But too much and the canoe starts to tip this way, so the weight goes over here a little bit. And it's not the case that you get the canoe just set and then you're good. It isn't like that. It's always shifting. There is no fixed sweet spot that you can put into a spreadsheet and say, I've got it. You might have it for a while and then expect the currents will change. You know, I recently got this knee trouble, and so I'm at the physical therapist, you know, and I've been doing martial arts since 1977. I've studied the body pretty extensively, at least a certain amount. I'm with this physical therapist, you know, who's half my age or something, less, and he's got, oh, let's try some balanced work there, sir. Of God, I've become sir. Okay, bring your balance. I got balance, bring it. He brings this little, I don't know how to describe this, but it's like a board, you know, with like a ball on the bottom. Simple. Just put your feet on the thing and stand there. I got this. I don't got it. I mean, I'm like horrible at this. I'm like, wait a minute. Where's my 6-degree black belt now? I'm getting my butt kicked by this little training board. But what I tried to do instantly was like make it even. I thought, oh, okay, this is simple. I know I've got the hack. I just make sure my weight is equal on both feet and then I got this. It doesn't work like that because your heart's beating over here and your lungs are breathing and the blood's pumping around and like you breathe and, you know? So it's moving all the time. And either you learn how to adjust with the moving or you fall on your ass. That's how it is. And you try to say, no, I'm just going to stand and it's going to be fine. I'm fine. This is fine. It's not fine. But maybe you're so fixed in your view that you have to stand there stoically that you don't even notice you're on your side because you're thinking about it. And you can't connect with what you're actually experiencing. So sometimes it's real good for you to fall on your tush. It can help you see. Yeah? So I think these guidelines on friendship and knowing how to relate is like this. Generous, conversational, virtuous action in the world and the contemplative, the mystic, the true wisdom. These things don't fight each other. We as practitioners need to know how to play in both keys and to be able to meet the moment well. And lastly, he says, by following this method, Ananda, it may be understood how the entire spiritual life is good friendship, good companionship, and good camaraderie. By relying upon me, the Buddha says, as a good friends, beings, listen to this, beings subject to birth are freed from birth. Beings subject to old age are freed from old age. Beings subject to death are freed from death. Beings subject to sorrow, lamentation, pain, dejection, and despair are freed from sorrow, lamentation, pain, dejection, and despair. By this method, too, Ananda, it may be understood how the entire spiritual life is good friendship, good companionship, and good camaraderie. Being friends with me, the Buddha says. What is that? Is that a gate that's now closed because the Buddha died some 2,600 years ago? No. When the Buddha says, be friends with me, how do you understand that? You could see it, that it means literally, Siddhartha Gautama, hey Sid, be pals. But it also means the lineage of successors. It means getting connected with a teacher. And what happens when that connection occurs? Then this Heart Sutra stuff starts to happen. Old age, lamentation, sorrow. This is where the real nourishment comes. But it's not even just the Buddha, the lineage, and the teacher. Really, when the Buddha says, become good friends with me, he's saying become good friends with your true nature, Buddha nature. That's the ultimate friendship. That's the ultimate place that you can truly, truly, truly rely on. Your nature and the nature of the cosmos are not separate. And to realize that is very much to make good friends with it. It's not just about understanding it or thinking it through or trusting it or believing in it. Those things won't help. Make good friends with the true nature of yourself. So, may we all practice being good friends and cultivating good friendship. May it be so.
Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it.
Thank you, everybody, especially those here for the first time, 1, 2, or 3. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our service for this evening. Do we have announcements? Yes.
So Ango, our period of intensive practice, starts on Sunday. We'll have the big ceremony, the signing of the scroll, and the ringing of the bell and red threads. Sangha circles, did you want to say anything, Kensei?
If you haven't signed up, please do. Friendship, you know.
I think a lot of you have signed up, but really, if you haven't, or if you've never had a chance to do one before, there should be an email that has a link, and there's a link on Facebook, and if you can't find either one, find me. I'll help you get hooked into a circle. So, and please do it by Saturday, because it closes down. The 24th, Saturday the 24th, is our big visioning session. If you can make it to the temple from 2 to 5, there will be an online session also where we're going to vision where we're going to be in a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. So this is your opportunity to take up the talking stick and let us know. And then on the 29th, our monthly White Tara Sadhana.
Thank you, everyone. Please restore the Zen.